I will identify and draw right, obtuse, and acute angles. So you're going to need a couple of things before you get started today. You're going to need your math journal, and you're also going to need your circle that was included in your pacing guide along with your problem set. You're going to see a circle. You're going to need to cut that circle out. All right, so I want you to go ahead and get your journal ready, but I'm going to tell you we're not going to be writing anything in your journal for a little bit, but I do want you to go ahead and write today's date. Lesson 2, right, acute, and obtuse angles. You're going to need that circle, so go ahead and cut it out. You're going to need that right at the beginning here. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to take your circle, and I want you to look at my pictures here. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to fold your circle in half, just like you see here. And then I want you to fold that half into half so that it looks like this. It's going to kind of look like a piece of pizza. Okay, now remember we're talking about angles. So once you get your paper or your circle folded like this, do you see any angles? You should see this as an angle. Go ahead and get my highlighter ready so that you can see where the angle is. While I'm getting this ready, you can be looking at your circle to see if you see where your angle is. This is an angle. You have this line segment. Oops, it's kind of hard to see. Let's go pink. You've got this line segment right here, and it is connected to this line segment right here. So this would be your endpoint right here, and you have two line segments connected to form an angle. Okay, now whenever you have an angle that makes this perfect corner or this perfect angle, we call it a right angle. And we're going to be comparing angles to this right angle today. That's what this is going to be. I'm going to be referring to this as your right angle template. All right, so take your right angle template, and what we're going to do is we're going to use it to measure some angles. And we're going to be deciding, are these angles greater than your right angle, less than your right angle, or exactly a right angle? Okay, so we're going to be using this as a template, and you're going to have to kind of turn your right angle template around so that it fits inside your right angle. All right, now the first thing I want you to do is I want you to get out your lesson 2 practice sheet, and I want you to find all the angles that your right angle template will fit exactly inside of. So if you take a look at mine, see how this template will fit right inside this angle? If it fits right inside it, that means that it is a right angle. So I want you to, as you can see, angle A is definitely a right angle because it fits right inside it. So what I want you to do is I want you to take your pencil, and we're going to be putting a symbol inside this angle to show that it's a right angle. Anytime you see an angle that's a right angle, you'll see this little tiny square right inside the angle, and that means it's a right angle. I want you to use your right angle template to fit into all the other angles in your practice sheet. And every single angle that is exactly a right angle, I want you to put this symbol in. Then I want you to come back. Okay, so let's look at the other angles that you found to be right angles. Did you find C to be a right angle? You should have. And you also should have found E to be a right angle. And also, you should have found G to be a right angle. So what do you notice about the other angles that are not a right angle? What do you notice about them? Well, some are less than a right angle, and some were more than a right angle. So let's find some angles that are less than a right angle. Let's take a look at angle B first of all. So let's take your right angle template and let's put it inside angle B. It takes me just a little bit longer than it does you. So once you go ahead and be getting yours ready while I move my template back up here. All right, so let's look at an angle that is less than a right angle. So I'm going to turn it so that the angle is matched up to the same angle as the B angle. And I have to make sure it's lined up perfectly. Now look at what happens when I put it inside angle B. I'm going to set it right on the line. And you're going to see how this line segment of B is actually hidden underneath the angle template. That tells me that it's less than a right angle. If it was over here, that would tell me it was greater than a right angle. So any angle that's less than a right angle, we are going to write the word less inside of. Now I already know that angle C is a right angle, so I'm going to go ahead and move on down to another one. So let's see if we can find another angle that's less than a right angle. D looks like it's less than a right angle, so let's try it. So I'm going to turn it so that it fits inside the angle. So look at what happens when I put the right angle template onto angle D. See how the other line segment or ray is hidden behind my template? That tells me that this is less. I want you to go through all the rest of the angles using your right angle template, and I want you to write the word less inside any angle that is less than a right angle. Okay, so did you find any other angles that were less than a right angle? I found B and D that we did together, and I also found angle F was less than a right angle. So what does that mean about the rest of these angles? It means that they are greater than a right angle. So let's take a look at an example of an angle that is greater than a right angle. And let's see one that we haven't marked yet. How about angle I? So if we take a look at angle I, and I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to set my right angle template inside angle I, and let's look at what happens. See how the other ray does not hide behind the template, it's way out past it. That means that it is greater than a right angle. So I'm going to write the word greater for this one. And go ahead and test J and H, but they are also greater than a right angle. Now here's where we are going to be getting out our journals again. I want you to go back to your journal, and we're going to use this just as kind of like a reference, okay? I want you to write some information inside your journal. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to take a straight edge. You might need to go get a ruler, or actually it's okay if you don't use a straight edge. Just try to make it as straight as you can. And I want you to try to, well, let's trace your right angle template. That'll work. Take your right angle template, I want you to trace it so that you have a perfect right angle. And then I want you to go ahead and put the little right angle symbol inside the vertex here to show that it's a right angle. And then I want you to label this. So underneath that, I want you to write the word right. And I want you to use R-I-G-H-T to show that this is a right angle. Okay, then next, somewhere else on your journal, I want you to go ahead and scroll down. Then I want you to draw an angle that is less than a right angle. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the bottom ray. And then where the vertex is, I'm going to make it less than a right angle. So inside this, I'm going to put an arc to show which way my angle opens. It opens here. And this angle is less than a right angle, but it has a name. We call these acute angles. So if it's less than a right angle, it is an acute angle. And then we're going to draw another angle. Last one. Let's extend the page. And this one we're going to draw greater than a right angle. And then I want you to draw an arc inside the angle to show which way it opens. And if an angle is greater than a right angle, we call it an obtuse angle. So we're putting this inside your math journal just so that you will have a reference. If you ever forget which is which, you can always come back and look in your math journal. All right, let's take a look at your problem set now. And go ahead and put your name at the top, and this sheet's pretty easy. It's basically just matching. So go ahead and see if you can't match all of the angles and then come back and check. So for this time, I want you to try to do this all by yourself. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and then we're going to come back and discuss it. Okay, so let's go ahead and check and see how you did. So you can just take a look at mine, and you can see how I matched it up, and you can see which angles were acute, which angles were right, which angles were obtuse. Now you notice that the directions say to write less than, greater than, or equal to in each angle to the correct label, but I did not write that in there, and it's okay if you didn't either, but I do want you to match each of these up. So if you need to pause the video and go ahead and take a look, go ahead and do that. But just remember, if your right angle template fits exactly inside the shape, then it's a right angle. So if you got one wrong, take your right angle template and go back to that shape and see if you can figure out why it's actually acute, or why it's actually obtuse, or why it's actually right. All right, now let's take a look at the second page. Now you'll notice that the directions say that we are to take a look at Pablo Picasso's painting here, and we're going to identify at least 2 acute, two obtuse, and two right angles. And then we're going to label them with points and name them in the table below the painting. So the first thing I'm going to look for are some acute angles. It's kind of hard sometimes to do this in a real life object, but I think that we can handle it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a line, and I'm going to make the color of the line, I think, green. I think that'll make it a little bit easier. And I'm going to go ahead and use the ray setting, and I'm looking for angles that are less than a right angle. So you can take your right angle template and fit it into these shapes. There are lots and lots of angles. I'm just going to kind of look for a couple. So if you see right here, if I use this as my vertex and I begin here, and then this is my other ray, this angle would be an acute angle. So I'm looking for another one. Here's another one. So this angle, here's one ray, and then here's my vertex. I'm going to make the other ray follow this line segment. These two will be my acute angles. Now I have to label them with points. I'm going to go ahead and grab my pen, and I'm going to write in some points. So an angle, remember, has 3 points. So I'm going to put three vertexes, or a vertex, excuse me, and 3 points. So I'm going to call this angle A, B, C, and I'm going to put 3 points on this angle, and I'm going to call this one D, E, F. And I'm going to go ahead and label them down here. So I've got angle, there's my angle symbol, A, B, C. Now remember, it could also be angle CBA. And I've got angle D, E, and F. All right, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look for some angles that are obtuse angles. So I'm going to go back to my line setting, and I'm going to put some rays in here. I'm going to use a different color for these. Maybe I'll do pink. All right, so I'm looking for angles that are greater than a right angle. So I'm looking at this angle. So if this were the vertex started here, and, whoop, something happened. Okay, so try that again. All right, so if this was my vertex here, and it came down this way, and came out this way, you can see that this angle is greater than a right angle. And this other side of this building is also obtuse, greater than a right angle. I could test this with my right angle template, but I can tell just by looking that it's greater than a right angle. So I've got to put some points on these just like I did the other one. So I'm going to put a point here, here, and here, and then points here, here, and here. So I'm going to call this one G, H, I. I'm being real creative with my labels, aren't I? And J, K, and L. So my obtuse angle, now notice the angle symbol is the same, regardless of whether it's an acute angle, an obtuse angle, or a right angle. Still, they all look like acute angles. So I'm going to go ahead and do IHG. Remember, that could also be labeled GHI, and angle JKL. All right, so now I'm looking for some angles that are right angles. So I'm going to go back up here to my line creator, and I'm going to use a different color here. I'm going to make these rays. I think I'll go ahead and make these blue, and I'm looking for exact right angles. So this is a rectangle, so I know it has to have 4 right angles. So I'm going to go ahead and put one line here, or a ray, excuse me. There's a ray, and here's another ray. That makes a right angle. And then, oh, right here. And then this corner of the building makes another right angle. Okay, so now I just have to go back and put some points on these just like I did the others. So I'm going to put a point here, here, and here. So a point here and at the vertex and here. So our last letter I ended with was L. So I'll call this M, N, O, and then P, Q, and R. So I've got angle M, NO, and angle P, Q, and R. So we identified acute angles, obtuse angles, and right angles. So now the last part of our learning target here is we're going to construct. Construct is just another word for right, and it says we're going to use a straight edge or our right angle template. Since you have your right angle template, you might as well go ahead and use it. And we're going to use the words greater than, less than, or equal to in our explanations. So we have to explain the characteristics, and we also have to draw one. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to take your pencil, and I want you to put the vertex on your paper. Okay, so put your vertex. Then you're going to use your right angle template to trace this base of your angle or this ray. I have a tool here where I can make a perfectly straight line. You don't. I want you to take your right angle template and I want you to trace it to make sure that this line is perfectly straight. Now, if it's going to be an acute angle, that means that this next ray has to be less than a right angle. So you can make it a very acute angle. You can make it a kind of acute angle. You can even make it almost a right angle, but it has to be less than a right angle. So now we've created it. Now we're going to use the words greater than, less than, or equal to as we are explaining the characteristics of an acute angle. So I'm going to type this because I can always type a little bit faster. That's a little bit big. Let's make this font a little bit smaller. Okay, so an acute angle is an angle that is less than a right angle. Okay, all right, now let's try a right angle. Why don't you use your right angle template? This will be easy because you can pretty much just trace your right angle template and you can make a perfect right angle. So again, you're going to start with your vertex and then you're going to start with the bottom part of your angle and then trace your right angle template to make sure that it is a perfect right angle. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put our little template inside here to show that it is a right angle, and then we have to give the characteristics of a right angle. So we're going to say that, let's see if I can go ahead and type this. A right angle creates a perfect corner where the two rays meet. I don't know what else to say. I guess I could say it's exactly a right angle. That really doesn't seem like a very good explanation. Okay, so now let's try an obtuse angle. So I want you to, again, use your right angle template. Start with your vertex and start with your straight line on the bottom. This time we're going to be creating a ray that opens up greater than a right angle. So we can go ahead and put our arc in there. I didn't put the arc in our acute angle that I should have to show which way it opened. But I'm going to go ahead and draw it in this one to show that it opens this way. Oops, I want this pin. Okay, so here's my arc. Maybe, maybe not. Having pin issues. Pin. Okay, so here's our arc. And now we have to create an explanation of the characteristics of an obtuse angle. So I'm going to say an obtuse angle is greater than a right angle. So remember, today's lesson was all about obtuse, acute, and right angles. If you forget which one is which, you can always come back and look at your journal.